Hello and welcome to Salute Your Sports. I'm Kamenenchev with Tom Castleman. We've got another awesome show for you guys today. So much fun, a topical Tuesday. ESPYs are this week, so we hand out some of our own awards for best team, best player, and more. Plus, we talk about the 5 best pro athletes to never win a ring. That should be fun. We'll head on the MLB All-Star festivities as well. Little British Open golf recap. Our picks actually did quite good. Speaking of good picks, how about betting locks of the week? A historic week. I almost couldn't believe it. We both went 3-0. We'll get into that as well. Sports trivia and a whole lot more. Should be another great show, Tom. I can't wait to get started. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Of course, on-field play is in a bit of a lull with the MLB being on its all-star break. Typically a time of year where there's not really a whole lot of actual sport content going on, but this offers us a great opportunity, as we're going to have with the ESPYs on Wednesday, July 20th, to kind of reflect on a year in review for sports. Great time to talk about that. So as you mentioned, Common, we got a ton of different categories that we're doing on our show. We even threw in one of our own, as you mentioned, with best ringless players, best individual athletes in team sports who never got their hands on that piece of championship hardware. But first, we're going to start with the teams that actually were able to climb that mountain and win the title in their respective sport. We've got Golden State Warriors and Chicago Sky for men's and women's basketball, respectively. Atlanta Braves in baseball, Rams in football from Los Angeles, Oklahoma Sooners in softball, Georgia Bulldogs in football, Colorado Avalanche in the NHL, all hoisted their respective trophies. So I guess that's a really, really good place to start. Over the past year, Common, who has been the best team in your mind?
Yeah, so this is crazy. If you think about, you look at this list, we have a lot of teams that weren't necessarily a 1 seed or a favorite going into their respective playoffs. So, I mean, I look at the Warriors. They're obviously my favorite team on this list. You know how much I love Stephen Curry.
Yeah.
I love Steve Kerr. However, they're not the answer. They're the most exciting team. As good as they were a 2 seed in the playoffs, did not have the best record over the whole season. Obviously, injuries played a part in that, but they were a very good team. I don't think they were the most dominant. I look at the Sky. The Sky were a 6 seed. So when I look at best team, I do want to take into factor the whole season. So it can't be the Sky. As much as I love Candace Parker, Chicago, Naperville native. I'm living in Naperville right now. I've interviewed her high school coach before. But can't go with Candace Parker. Rams, similar deal. The Rams were the 4 seed in the NFC. So great run to win the Super Bowl, great overall team, but they really put it together late. It wasn't a dominant run for the Rams. Braves, an even better example of that, Tom. Braves had the worst record of any team that made the playoffs last season. And they somehow put it together. So not going with any of those teams. It kind of leaves 3 teams, and it's kind of ironic that 2 of the 3 are maybe teams that I didn't watch that much. I think Georgia football is one that I watched quite a bit. They're certainly in the discussion. They dominated the whole season. They won by 2 touchdowns or more every game that they played, other than the loss against Alabama and the opening game against Clemson, 10-3 game to start the season. So, Georgia's got a chance at this, but I do look at this. They still lost to Alabama in the SEC championship. And Jameson Williams did get hurt in that national title game. That was a really close game. The final score wasn't indicative of the final. If Williams doesn't get hurt, who knows? Maybe Alabama wins. I did feel that Georgia and Alabama were pretty evenly matched. I mean, they split the season 1-1. Who knows what happens if there's round 3? So I can't go with Georgia because I don't think they were so much more dominant. Same reason as the Warriors, the Sky, the Braves, the Rams. They were the best team at the right time, but they weren't like hands down the best team throughout the season. Avalanche, a little bit closer. Avalanche, they were the 2 seed in their conference. The 1 seed in the conference, second best overall record. They only lost 4 playoff games the entire playoff run. So they were pretty dominant, but if we're looking for true dominance, this is actually a pretty easy answer. And it's the one team that probably the least famous team of all these, but it is the Oklahoma softball team. That's the obvious answer. 59-3, 17-1 in conference play. If you look at who they lost to Texas, one of those three losses. They went 5-1 against Texas over the whole season. They beat them 16-1 and 10-5 in the College World Series. They lost to Oklahoma State. They did take 3 out of 4 against them over the season. And then they did lose to UCLA in the College World Series at one point, came back and dominated them in the next game 15-0. So they actually outscored every opponent they played. So no one could really say that they had the better side of Oklahoma. We'll talk about their power hitter later in the show as well for ESPYs. But Oklahoma softball was, without question, the most dominant team when we look at all of these teams. Georgia and Colorado are the ones that you can compare, but it's got to be the Sooners for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they started the preseason ranked number 1. They finished the season ranked number 1. As you mentioned, Common, with their record, just absolutely dominant. I agree with you. Oklahoma softball is the best overall team because I basically had the same criteria of both regular season and then postseason. I mean, we could certainly say like most magical run could probably go to the Chicago Sky, a team that was 16-16, a dead even record heading into the postseason, and upset a lot of teams on their way to a title. Upset so much that I think it was Diana Taurasi. Was she the one who broke the door? Somebody on the Phoenix Mercury busted a locker room door because they were that upset at losing the WNBA finals. And of course, always a great story when a team, a franchise, gets its first title ever. And actually, if you're paying attention to the Sky now, could very well be on their way to winning back-to-back titles this year as they are top in the WNBA. Couple games going in the season. I would recommend trying to get out to a game. I'm going to at some point late this summer. I'm going to see if I can find a good time for me to be able to go out to Rosemont to see the Sky play. So that'll be a lot of fun. But absolutely, in terms of wire-to-wire, end-to-end dominance, Oklahoma Sooners softball definitely takes the cake for me on that one. Next up, we've got the best game of the year, and there are a whole host of them that could have been nominated, but here are the ones that are listed. We have that Chiefs-Bills overtime thriller in the the AFC semifinals before getting to the AFC Championship game. We've got the University of Connecticut in double OT over NC State, which was the top team in that bracket. UConn, the number 2 team. Kansas coming from behind, 16-point deficit against UNC. Largest comeback in championship history for NCAA basketball. And of course, you've got Bryce Young rallying Alabama 4 overtimes to beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl, which is always a classic game. I know a few years back that Iron Bowl probably was the best overall game with that last second punt return, kick return,
off the missed kick,
touchdown, absolutely. But Common, what do you have for the best game of the year?
I'm sure you know which way I'm going.
Because I'm probably going the same way.
I don't think this was particularly close. I do think best team, a little bit closer. I think we made the right choice, but this has to be Chiefs-Bills. I think it was definitely the best game. You look at the last 2 minutes, we had 3 touchdowns and a field goal in the last 2 minutes of regulation, then a walk-off touchdown in overtime. The way that game was going, it was like whoever wins the coin flip is going to win the game. Luckily, the Chiefs won the coin flip because I like the Chiefs. But this was just a better overall game, too. 42-36, high-scoring game. We have, Diggs and Hill, 2 of the best receivers. Mahomes and Allen, you can make a case. The 2 best quarterbacks, talent-wise, in the NFL could be for years to come. Just a huge game. It was amazing throughout the whole game. The finish was the best, but 42-36 in a playoff overtime game is pretty great. Iron Bowl is always a huge rivalry. Not saying it wasn't dramatic with those 4 overtimes, but that game was 10-3 until Alabama scores a touchdown late. I know you like defense, but my goodness, that was a tough game to watch. Not a lot of scoring, not a lot of big plays. So comparatively speaking, over the whole game, no comparison to the Chiefs game. The Kansas game, okay, I know. we're Mizzou grads, me especially. I can't stand Kansas, but Mizzou grad can't go with Kansas. I'll say this though, from a sort of like taking it as not like a biased perspective, I'll say this too: that Kansas game was obviously a great game, but UNC missed a lot of shots. They shot 31.5% from the floor. Kansas about 44%. We didn't have a game-winning shot late. We didn't have really a great individual performance. The highest scoring player in the game was 15. There was a few guys that did that. So no one in the game scored more than 15 points on either team. So it was kind of like, yes, it was a great comeback by Kansas. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but a lot of it was that it was just a lot of bricks by UNC. I mean, 72-69, the final score, not necessarily per se a really low scoring game, but not on the higher scoring end either. So it wasn't like we were witnessing just a barrage of crazy shots and plays. So I got to go with the Chiefs one over that. Probably the second best game on this list was probably that UConn NC State ladies game. We did have a high scoring game, 91-87. We did have a great performance. Paige Beckers with 27 points. So that was a good game. Like you mentioned, so many other games that, probably could have been nominated weren't on this list. Obviously the Real Madrid comeback in soccer. I don't want to talk about that though. But this is obviously to go with North American sports. But Chiefs Bills overall was the best game. Really, I kind of put this in here just so we can recount the legendary game, because I didn't really think this was going to be a tough choice. I almost didn't put it in the rundown for that reason exactly. But I just do think that game was just insane. I mean, you thought the Chiefs were dead. And then Travis Kelce with 13 seconds, he kind of tells Tyreek Hill what to do. Hill does it. They get another completion. Butker with the long field goal. It was unbelievable, that football game. One of the best football games of all time, honestly.
Certainly, if you like offense and just kind of like face melting action, that absolutely takes the cake. I personally thought by the end of the game that while the points and the touchdowns were all fun, it was pretty clear both defenses were gassed at that point, where basically you just have Gabriel Davis going, wide open into the end zone because there's miscommunication, tired legs, guys are just making mistakes. So certainly a lot of fun. I think that was, game of the year, not necessarily, again, toward the end of the game, the most like quality in terms of even competition. If you want to kind of go with like just literally trading blows, both offense and defense being really good, you could probably go UConn, NC State, because going in double OT, you got to play both sides of the ball if you're those individual players, as opposed to on offense, you're in the NFL, you're going to have a bit of an advantage as the game goes on over a defense, because the defense is going to get tired and they're playing reactionary all game long. But I think that was the best game as well. It had many, many, many calls for changes in overtime rules because people just wanted more of what they were witnessing. So I think when you have that much interaction, that much social media around it, Bills Chiefs has to take the cake for that. I kind of found like UNC Kansas, it was a bit of like an uninspiring NCAA championship. I think as far as storylines, a lot of people would have preferred Gonzaga, would have performed Arizona, would have preferred, even
Blue
Duke.
Bloods, though. Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods, but you've got an 8-seeded UNC team that definitely overachieved in getting to the finals, and kind of just like a ho-hum Kansas team. Like, do people really get excited about Kansas? I know I don't. So that's kind of where I left things with that. And then, of course, Iron Bowl, you've got, sure, it's a great rivalry, a great regional rivalry. Auburn, quite frankly, just not that great this past season. So if anything, was more surprising that it had to go to 4 overtimes in order for Alabama to win. I think that's the most notable thing about that game. So I think Chiefs Bills, we have it absolutely right on that one as best game of the year. Kind of like widening the lens a little bit, going more full career look on this next category. We have best record-breaking performance, and there were quite a few. We have Curry passing Ray Allen for the most 3-pointers in a career. We have Jocelyn Alo breaking Lauren Chamberlain's home run record for most home runs in D1 softball history. Allison Felix winning her 11th career medal, surpassing Carl Lewis for both just overall medals in USA track and field. And then we have Brady passing Breeze in most passing yards, then Breeze passing Brady, and then I think Brady passed Breeze and that's where
Again.
things stand. So, in terms of best overall career achievement, Common, where are you going with this one?
We did have the Allison Felix also nominee. You didn't hit on. I believe she was
Yes, I did.
nominated for her. Oh, you did hit on it. 11,
Yeah, I touched on that.
Yeah, 11 medals. Maybe I'm losing my mind. 11 medals for America, passing Carl Lewis in the Olympics. So I'm going to start right there. I'm kind of going to do process of elimination because Allison Felix, by the way, shout out to her. Incredible. She just ended her career at the track and field championships. This is her last track and field championships she's competing in. She does it in the 100, the 200, the 400. What an impressive athlete. However, she is definitely not the answer. As much as I respect her having a baby, coming back, winning a medal in the Olympics, fighting for women's rights, Nike, tried to take her down to less money, and she started her own brand. But however, I'll say this, of her 11 medals, she did win 6 of them in the relays. So Carl Lewis had 9 golds and a silver. I think he had 1 relay. So she got a lot of those because of playing for America, a great country. She had 7 of 11 were gold, but only 1 gold in the individual events. So it's a great record. Obviously, this is one of the best 5 records we had over the year, as you see the nominees. But she can't be the answer because she just wasn't as dominant, and she got a lot of help in the relays. Tom Brady setting the regular season record. We know how great Tom Brady is. When you think of Tom Brady, people say he's the GOAT because of all the Super Bowl wins, the great postseason play. Obviously, a fantastic regular season player. But you look at his career pass yards per game, he is 7th all time in career pass yards per game, which is obviously very good. But you look at Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, guys in his own era who did average more yards per game. They turned the ball over more. I know they didn't win as much. This isn't a debate as to, who's better between them. You can obviously go with Brady for obvious reasons. However, he wasn't really the most, per se, dominant when it comes to passing yards. This is the record that we're talking about. He won it because of longevity. He's played longer than anyone else. He won it because he passed for a lot of yards, but it was in large part a longevity award. So as far as Jocelyn Alo, she's got to be the second pick for me. I think breaking that home run record. Look, she's got 122 in her career. Lauren Chamberlain, another Oklahoma girl, 95. So that's a pretty good bet. Pretty good gap right there. More than 20 home runs, the next closest person. But as far as record-breaking performance, this is without question Stephen Curry. This is definitely Curry because he is so far ahead of anyone else. Ray Allen, Curry's about 100 threes ahead of Ray Allen now, but he has so much more to go in his career. So many more games to go. He's done it in less games. And look at their percentages. Curry for his career, just under 43%. You look at Ray Allen, about 40%. Reggie Miller, a little under 40%. James Harden, way under 40%. Those are the other guys on him, like Allen, Miller, Harden, the 2, 3, 4 on that list. And Curry, of those guys, is faced, especially compared to Reggie Miller and Ray Allen, who were coming off screens, and even Ray Allen late in his career wasn't the go-to guy. So Curry faced a lot more double teams, a lot tougher defenses. He shot more threes at a higher volume, and he still had a higher percentage. So as far as where he's going to end up on this record list, it's got to be Curry. For me, best impressive, most impressive record-breaking performance on those three-pointers.
Yeah, for me, actually, we're going to go in pretty opposite directions on this one. I think that for both Tom Brady and Steph Curry, both of those are obviously great records that have to do with talent and longevity. Also has to do with change in how games are played now.
Sure.
When we look at, number of three-pointers attempted when, say, Ray Allen or even Reggie Miller, another all-time great three-point shooter, when they were playing, the three-point shot was not featured nearly as much as it is in the current NBA. So Curry definitely on efficiency, I mean, he earns being the top three-point shooter of all time. But in terms of impressiveness, that's something that just eventually was going to fall simply because of, just how the game changes, how things develop over time. Brady, of course, with the NFL becoming a more passing-centric game, He's going to continue adding on to career passing yards. Eventually, that's going to be broken as, a bunch of young players are throwing the ball more than Brady was early on in his career. And of course, now we have 17, and we might even be seeing NFL games in our lifetime in a given season. So those records are obviously great. Lifetime achievements are going to continue to be added on to. For Jocelyn Alo, great home run record, but she also took 47 more games to do it. She had 47 more games to hit all those home runs than Chamberlain. So if we're going on like a per game basis, they're more or less even. So I landed on Allison Felix. I mean, she's had a really long and varied career. Definitely faced some hurdles off the track as she went through a very difficult pregnancy late on in her career, and just a ton of longevity, something that we don't see out of a lot of track and field. So granted, while a bunch of medals do come in the relay, obviously a key point or key contributor to that portion of the race. So I'm going to go with Allison Felix, although I think all of these are really great achievements. It's kind of hard to pick one because I think they're all on more or less even footing. Just for me, I kind of tend to go for the individual achievement of, say, like an Olympic set of sports type of thing.
Sure.
Over the way games are going. But certainly I don't think that there's anything that we could say is like a wrong answer here.
No.
Like we probably could have for some of the other categories that we've already had. So I think, obviously great achievements for everybody, and congrats to everyone who's nominated. It'll be interesting to see how the voting comes out on this one. If Steph is able to kind of like put his thumb on the scale, considering he's hosting the ESPYs coming up tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll say this is a fan vote, so it's going to be either Curry or Brady.
Probably, yes.
It's going to be one of those guys for sure. I will say this though, again, a great debate. Depends on where you land, like game culture, attempts, etc. I can see where you're coming from. However, again, my thought is that as great as Allison Felix was, a lot of it was in the relays. America is so dominant that like individual events, she won one career gold medal in the Olympics. That is why for me, I have a hard time putting her, but there's, depends where you're going with that. Definitely, like you said, all four have great merits for sure.
Absolutely. Moving into now best male athlete, we could see a double dip on this one, but somehow I don't think we will. We've got Steph Curry for the Golden State Warriors, Aaron Rodgers for the Green Bay Packers. I think he's going to finish a distant fourth. We have Shohei Ohtani for the LA Angels and Connor McDavid for the Edmonton Oilers as best male athlete. There are a couple different ways we could take this one. I actually kind of have like a dead heat tie for first place. I imagine you might as well, considering one of them is your favorite athlete.
No,
well,
here's the
third
surprise.
favorite athlete. Third, fourth? Where does Steph rank? Because I know you've got Messi, then Federer. Do you go LeBron Curry or Curry LeBron? Oh, you got Mahomes. You got somebody. Okay.
I got a lot of guys. It's third is probably between those guys, and you got to throw Giannis in that conversation too. I've become a big lover of Giannis, so it's hard to say. It does go Messi. It goes Federer. Then it's probably like LeBron, Curry, Mahomes, Giannis, depends
how you feel when you wake up.
Yeah, depending on how I'm feeling in a given day. So I'm going to surprise you, actually, Tom. It's not Steph Curry. Even though I love Steph Curry, I look at best male athlete. I think Curry was the best player, hands down, in the finals, the best player in the playoffs. However, if you look at his season as a whole, and a lot of it was, to be fair, a lot of it was due to injuries. Injuries definitely hurt Mr. Curry. But you look at what Jokic did winning the MVP, Giannis's numbers, Embiid's numbers. I mean, you could put a case that he wasn't even the best NBA player. So that's kind of where I land on Curry. I can't put him the best male athlete because there's a lot of other guys in his own league that he can compete against. And it's the same case for Rodgers. I mean, Rodgers, he won MVP. I'm not really sure that he deserved it. He finished 10th in pass yards, 4th in passing touchdowns. Guys like Brady, Cooper Kupp, even maybe Mahomes had better seasons. I think we know Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. You can make a case for Rodgers not even being the second best. So do you hear me okay, Tom, by the way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that I think my speakers are skipping a little. So I want to make sure you got me good. But as far as Rodgers Again, like you said, probably a distant fourth because he may not even be the best at his own position in his own league. So for me,
And he's not very likable either.
He's not very likable either. A lot of these other guys are pretty likable. So that leaves really down the two for me, Connor McDavid and Shohei Ohtani. I think you know where I'm going to go with this one. Connor McDavid, probably the best hockey player for sure. However, he led the NHL in points, but he was only 7th in goals, not in the top 20 in plus minus. So he was the best player, but not by a huge margin again. Shohei Ohtani, given what he does as a hitter and as a pitcher, he had to be the best male athlete because he was 3rd in the majors in home runs in 2021 with 46, only, I believe, 2 back of the lead, 9-2 with the 3.18 ERA. This year, his homers down a little bit, his pitching even better, 2.38 ERA. I know Aaron Judge is a great home run hitter, a great player, but when you factor in what Ohtani does on both sides of the ball, as in pitching and hitting, he is, in American professional sports right now, arguably the most dominant athlete. So he's got to be the best male athlete for me. Even though Curry's my favorite, again, this is a fan vote. If it's going by popularity, Curry's probably going to win. He is hosting as well, a lot of extra attention. Definitely my favorite player in this list. Actually, the most exciting guy to watch because, I do prefer basketball to baseball. And as exciting as Ohtani is, if he's not pitching on a given day, we only see him at the plate 4 times. So when he's pitching, maybe more exciting. But every time Curry plays, he's, very exciting. But as far as best athlete, it's got to be Ohtani, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's Ohtani for me as well, simply because nobody living has seen anything like this ever in their entire lives. It is incredible. I mean, you'll see it say, little league or high school level. The pitcher can also be the best hitter on the team simply because they're the best athlete. The difference is that everyone else around them are much poorer athletes than what you're seeing at the major league level, where you have somebody who is able to go out and be at times a dominant starting pitcher. I know Shohei, when he's on, one of the best in the game, can be a little bit uneven at times. But then from the plate, absolutely phenomenal hitter. And then great speed and base running as well. So I think that he takes the cake for best male athlete. I think that he's going to blow everybody out of the water because he's going to have a lot of worldwide fan voting behind him as well. I think Connor McDavid, if we're going on merits of just the talent or skill that is needed to play the game that you play, Connor McDavid, I think, would be a close second. But given that he's playing hockey, he's just not going to have the same name recognition fan-wide for voting as anybody else does. And then Steph Curry, obviously fantastic handles, great shooting. We saw the finals performance that he put on. I think he'll probably finish second in the voting if I had to guess.
You think so? Really?
I think he'll finish over Connor McDavid, yeah, because it's, more people watch NBA than they do NHL.
No, I know that. I think he's going to finish first.
Oh, I think Shohei's going to finish first.
You think so?
I think enough people, baseball isn't necessarily, it's below NBA in terms of social media popularity. It's definitely above hockey. But I think I'm counting worldwide vote on this one. There are going to be a lot of folks from, say, Japan that are going to be voting for Shohei Ohtani, representing their guy. So I think he's going to be the one that's going to actually finish in first place.
Okay. I'm not really sure how popular the ESPYs are in Japan, but I do think there's going to be some people just voting because they want their guy.
Andrew Wiggins was voted starter in an NBA All-Star game because he had some K-pop love behind him. I definitely could see for me, it's not too far a leap and a jump for Shohei Ohtani to ride a wave into first place on this one.
Okay. That's fair. I don't necessarily, I wouldn't be upset. He's my pick to win it. I wouldn't be shocked if he won it. But if we're going with who I think is going to win, it's going to be Curry. But that's just me. We'll see.
Absolutely. So the ESPYs won't be covering this topic because this is a much, much broader range. But this is one that we kind of had canned for a little bit of a slower time of year that we're kind of going through right now. And it is a best ringless discussion. So the parameters around this discussion are the best individual athletes in a team sport to never, ever win a championship. I've had this prep kind of done for a couple of weeks, so I think like a good place
Same.
to start out is like who's in our top five, and then we can kind of discuss, some of the honorable mentions, some of the people that don't necessarily
I was gonna do it
make
the
the
other
list.
way, actually.
Oh,
That's
you
how I
were?
have it
Oh,
written. Honorable mention first, and then maybe top
uh,
five.
I mean, if you want to, I only made a top five,
Oh,
and then I was
okay.
going to like leave the honorable mentions for whoever else, because I imagine our lists are going to be a little bit different, but I imagine we have at least like 60% of our lists are going to be the same, maybe
Okay.
just 40.
All right. Well, I'll start with my honorable mention, then you can do your top five,
Sure,
and then I can do my top five. Because you
let's
know
go
me,
for it.
Tom, I've got a lot of names written down, so it would literally take 10 minutes to go through honorable mention and top five. So I'm gonna get started with my honorable mention. So first off, this is American major sports is what I'm going with.
Sure.
That's kind of the parameters. I'm not gonna delve into soccer, which I could because you know how much I love soccer. But
Ooh, that would have been a good one.
yeah,
But there's
that
like a
would.
lot of different titles for that.
There's a lot of different titles. There's a lot of different leagues. So,
Mhm.
again, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to keep it to male sports. I know there's a lot of female sports. We love the female sports. We talk about them on this show. I'm also going to keep it more to the big three. I'm going to keep it more
Sure.
to NBA, NFL, and MLB. If you actually look at lists online, which I consulted just to see some of the arguments on there, very rarely do you see a hockey guy in there because a lot of the hockey greats did win a cup.
Mhm.
Maybe the one hockey guy that I will throw in there for honorable mention is Marcel Dion. Marcel Dion is sixth all time in points and assists. Did not win a Stanley Cup. So that would be the hockey honorable mention. I'll throw some NFL guys in there. A lot of great NFL players that never won a
Mhm.
championship. Bruce Smith, 200 career sacks, the most all time, twice a defensive player of the year. Did play in 4 straight Super Bowls with the Bills there in the 90s and lost them all. So that was very tough for the Bills. Those Bills teams of the late 80s, early 90s were fantastic. Just could not get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. Randy Moss, second all time receiving touchdowns, an all time great receiver, fourth all time in receiving yards, 5 times led the league in receiving touchdowns, single season record holder with 23 touchdowns in a season. That record is still his. He lost in the Super Bowl with that undefeated
Mhm.
Patriots team, their only loss coming in the Super Bowl. A couple NFL running backs, LaDainian Tomlinson, one of the best to ever do it, second all time in career rushing touchdowns, 7th in rush yards. Adrian Peterson, 4th in rush TDs, 5th in rush yards. Those are 2 great running backs that really were never on a team that could win it all. They had some good teams. They made some playoff runs, but could never make it even to the Super Bowl. I don't think either played even in a Super Bowl, forget winning one. Then to the MLB, a few MLB guys. This guy I almost put in the top 5. I love this guy. Talking about favorite players, Tom, I think favorite all-time athletes, when you were listing my guys, there's one guy that maybe I don't hype up enough because we haven't seen him play in so long. And when he kind of retired was when we were first becoming friends. Ken Griffey Jr.
Mhm.
Loved the kid. I used to imitate his swing in baseball. You can actually make a case for him being in the top 5. He was like maybe the hardest guy for me to leave off here. 630 career home runs, 7th all time. No steroid accusations. Led the league in homers 4 times. 13-time All-Star, 10-time Gold Glove Award winner, a 5-tool player, got 99% of votes when it came to the Hall of Fame, just did not win a championship. Then a few more baseball guys. Ty Cobb, again, different era, playing in the early 1900s, but 366 batting average is still the best of all time. Only player to win the Triple Crown while also leading the league in steals. 11-time batting champ, Ty Cobb. So he was a legend. Ernie Banks, former Cubs shortstop, first
Mhm.
baseman, 14-time All-Star, won the NL MVP twice, led the league in homers and RBI. Twice led the league in homers and RBI, won the NL MVP, won a Gold Glove, 512 career homers. So he's a baseball guy. And then some NBA guys. Elgin Baylor, 3rd all-time career points per game at 27.4. Also got 13 and a half rebounds a game, 9th all time in playoff points per game. Only thing that gets me is that he had only a 43.1 field goal percentage in his NBA career. And you know how much I love that.
Mhm.
So here's another reason why I'm also knocking Allen Iverson off the top five. 42.5 field goal percentage for Iverson, but seventh all time in NBA career points per game. Former league MVP, former scoring champ. And then a couple other NBA guys on my honorable mentions. Charles Barkley, 11-time All-Star, 22-12 for his career, former league MVP, losing to MJ in the finals. And speaking of losing to MJ, John Stockton. So you'll see, I'll have Karl Malone in my top five. This was one of those calls, you either pick Stockton or Malone. I went Malone just slightly over Stockton, but John Stockton made the playoffs in all 19 of his seasons, lost in 2 finals, the all-time leader in steals and assists, another great honorable mention. So maybe some of these guys are going to be on your list. Maybe they won't.
One of them will be.
Hit me. So only one of them. Okay, so there you go.
Only
so actually,
one of them is on the list. Yeah.
Our list is going to be very similar then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the one honorable mention that I put in my list is Charles Barkley. Looking at the numbers of what he did in playoff games, 23 points per game, 12.9 rebounds per game in 123 playoff games. Both of those numbers higher than his career averages in the regular season. Kind of like for the Utah Jazz, there's a couple things that go into Stockton Malone not making this list for me.
Okay.
One is they played together for such a long time.
Sure.
That Charles Barkley, you look at some of his teammates, sure, he had good guys. He had to have good teams around him to even get to the finals, but never really had a ton of help, enough help to be able to win it all.
When he was in his prime.
When he was in his prime, absolutely. Another thing, John Stockton, famous for hitting guys below the belt whenever they tried to set screens on him. That's a no-no in my book. That's going to get you off my list. Don't even get started on Karl Malone and some of the extracurriculars, shall we say, around his life. That gets him off my list as well for top 5 ring list. So Charles Barkley is on there. Also, I feel like I got to cape a little bit for Charles. He's a really fun personality post-career. Sure. I really enjoy, whenever he's talking. The only time I don't really enjoy him is college basketball because it's clear he's just there for entertainment. He's an NBA guy. Let him stay with the NBA. I also think he's unfairly maligned both by Shaquille O'Neal, Draymond Green for not having won a title. I think it's really easy for guys to rib on him for that. And it's obviously not indicative of how amazing his career has been. Rounding up my top 5, probably the number 1 guy on my list is Barry Sanders. I imagine he's number 1 on your list as well.
Not number 1, I think number 2 maybe, but he's great.
He's number 1 ringless for me. And obviously as a Bears fan, I don't like anybody on the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, or Green Bay Packers, except one player. I always have felt badly for Barry Sanders. Growing up, I pretty much only remember him from Thanksgiving football games because that's when it would be go to Grandma Grandpa's house. That game is on TV. Always fun to watch Barry. Only played, we talk about not winning a ring, only played in 6 playoff games in his entire career. The Detroit Lions only won 1 playoff game with Barry Sanders as a running back. An absolute travesty for an all-time great. Also in football, I'm going to put Dan Marino on my list. Yep. Got to the Super Bowl really early in his career. I think it was 23, 24, something like that. And then, it's kind of like what we might perhaps experience with someone like Joe Burrow, where it's, hey, they have a great season. Their team has a great year early on in their career. And there's kind of this notion of, they're on the rise. They'll be back eventually. That's not always the case. Dan Marino, I don't even think reaching another Super Bowl after that one, let alone winning one. And then baseball, of course, has many, many players who are all-time greats who have not won the whole thing. For me, I'm going to go with 2, both really good hitters. One, a wartime hero, Ted Williams, going off and fighting in World War II. So having a significant gap in his career, really kind of like in those prime years. He was an amazing player before he went, then coming back, continued to be an amazing player. So I have him as a top 5 ringless player. And then Barry Bonds is also on my list as well. I know that there's a lot of PED stuff swirling around him. I've kind of like come around on my thinking on this one, where especially when it comes to the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame is meant to tell the story of baseball, and steroids and performance enhancing drugs are a part of
Sure.
baseball's story, just like greenies are in Willie Mays' time in 60s, 70s, even
Sure.
80s. Uh, um,
Pine tar, all the
Pete
stuff the
Rose
pitchers
is
have.
famous for sliding into first base, popping up and saying, first baseman says, "Hey, somebody drank a little extra coffee today, a little extra of the special coffee," and Pete Rose says, "What do you think puts the hustle in Charlie Hustle?"
Oh my
That's
God.
absolutely something that was a part of baseball, where guys were able
Sure.
to go out and continue to play with that. So as far as the PED allegations, I've moved completely into Barry Bonds, phenomenal player before he was, juiced up and roided up. This was a very clear physiological change in him over his career, but
Sure.
also just number of home runs that he hit toward the end of his career. Not necessarily a great base runner or a great fielder, but guys were intentionally walking him with the bases loaded and having absolutely no problem with it. That says how great of a player you are, and never getting to win a World Series. Had a shot in the 02 World Series,
Against the
Giants and
Angels.
Angels, coming up short there. But that's my top five list: Barkley, Ted Williams, Dan Marino, Barry Bonds, and of course Barry Sanders at the top.
Before I get in, is that the ranking 5-2-1, or did you like not have it specific? Like, if
Uh,
you had to, I'll put you on the spot here.
I am basically, it's Barry Sanders is number one, and then everybody else is kind of tied. Like, I didn't really rank everyone else. It's just for me, the special dysfunction and poor quality of the Detroit Lions is what makes Barry Sanders at the top of my list. Everybody
Sure.
else just kind of gloms together in. They're just a top five cloud, I guess, a two
It's
through five cloud.
it's crazy, Tom, how similar our list is because
Hmm.
I did do some reading online, and there's some varying guys. There's some guys who I left off that many people have in their top 10, top five list rather. So I did rank them 5-1. So this
Sure.
was my hardest decision. I went with Carl Malone at number five. I will say this, Tom: Malone and Stockton both have a lot of questionable things they've
Oh
done over
yeah,
the years. I simply went with how good of a player you were, because this is the reason
absolutely. Yeah.
why I do have Barry Bonds in the list, because I could have easily put Ken Griffey. I almost struggled putting Bonds over Griffey because Bonds, I think, better player. Would Bonds have been a better player if he didn't use steroids? It's hard to say because Bonds was a great base stealer, a Gold Glove Award winner. I would say Bonds and Griffey prior to Bonds' steroids, pretty
Hmm.
similar type players, to be honest with
Or
you.
or
Maybe
if
Bonds even
Griffey
slightly better.
or if Griffey doesn't even have a couple of catastrophic injuries, kind of toward like the tail end of his prime, where I think he missed like at least one entire season, maybe like a season and a half. He just like ran into
Sure.
leg issues. Still hit 630 career home runs. If he has two more seasons, we're talking about somebody who's probably in the 700 club
Yeah.
and a
So
great center fielder.
sure, absolutely. So Bonds and Griffey for me was my toughest call. Karl
Absolutely.
Malone was a tough call at number five because a lot of NBA deserving guys. The reason why I did go for Karl Malone over Charles Barkley: Karl Malone has better cumulative numbers over his career. Third
Mhm.
all time in career points, seventh all time in career playoff points, 14-time All Star, 11-time first team All NBA, averaged 25 points per game over his career, 11th all time. By the way, he's one ahead of Kobe. Kobe's 12th all time. So Karl Malone was great. Lost to the Bulls twice in the finals, once to the Pistons later on when he was a Laker. So Karl Malone simply put up better numbers and had more great seasons than Barkley. I think Barkley and Malone in their primes, pretty close players. But I think Barkley as a whole over his whole career didn't have as many good seasons as Karl Malone for me. So Malone number five. I got Barry Bonds at number four. Bonds, we just talked about it. Single season and all-time record holder in home runs and walks, by the way. Best single season
Mhm.
slugging percentage, 14-time All-Star, 7-time MVP, 12-time Silver Slugger Award winner, twice led the majors in home runs, twice in batting, more than 700 career homers, more than 500 stolen bases, won multiple gold gloves, four RBI shy of 2,000 for his career, 298 batting average. And by the way, that one World Series he played in, He had 4 home runs, 6 RBIs with a 471 batting average and a 700 on base percentage. So definitely not his fault they didn't win the World Series. So 5-tool player in Barry Bonds. You can make a case for him being the best player from a numbers standpoint of all time. If you look at everything he did, I would still put Babe Ruth number 1 because of the average and power, but Bonds had more speed, better defense. Like, obviously, Bonds gets knocked for steroids, but if we were looking at strictly numbers, it's like Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds are the 2 guys in baseball. So number 3, I've got Dan Marino. Dan Marino, by the way, this is a great stat I saw online, Tom. More than 10,000 passing yards than other Hall of Fame quarterbacks in his own era, like John Elway and Warren Moon. Think about that.
Yeah.
More than 10,000 yards than 2 of those guys who are 2 of the all-time great quarterbacks in the NFL. He revolutionized passing. He made passing cool. He was doing it before everyone else was. Held the single-season record for passing yards and touchdowns for a long time. 17 years for passing yards, I think it was. More than that for passing touchdowns. All-time passing record when he retired. He's still 6th all-time in pass TDs and yards. 5 times led the league in pass yards. 3 times in passing touchdowns. He actually would be even higher on this list for me had he performed a little bit better in the playoffs. I didn't watch those playoff games, but just looking at it from a stat standpoint, obviously he probably didn't have enough help around him, but 32 touchdowns and 24 picks. Like, I think that does not speak well for him in his limited postseason career. And actually, a little bit more than limited. He played more postseason games than some of these other guys like Barry Sanders and Ted Williams. So that's the only knock on him, is that he could have been a little bit better in the postseason. But I do think that he might be even higher on this list if it wasn't for, maybe not performing as much in the postseason, because Bonds was great when he was in the postseason. Karl Malone was very good in the postseason. My number 2 guy is Barry Sanders. You talked about Barry, just played on a horrible team. It's how bad the Lions are as a franchise, one of the worst franchises ever. We just saw Matthew Stafford, their quarterback, leave, immediately win a Super Bowl ring with the Rams. So Barry Sanders, Tom, did play just 10 seasons, all 10 more than 1,000 rush yards. 4 of them led the league in rushing. He did it with 5 yards per carry. He was efficient. 99.8 rush yards per game are still the 2nd best of all time, behind Jim Brown. And Jim Brown played in an even bigger running era than Barry Sanders. So 1 of 8 to go for 2,000 rush yards in a season. Would be the NFL's all-time leading rusher, if not retiring early. He's still 4th all-time in career rush yards, despite playing only 10 seasons. Only played in 6 playoff games, won 1 with the dreadful Lions. But Barry Sanders, for sure, Tom, is a legend of the game. Fantastic player. It was his team's fault he didn't win a ring. And number 1, I'm going with Ted Williams. Ted Williams is considered, we talk about Bonds and Babe Ruth. Well, Ted Williams is probably the other guy in that discussion in terms of sheer numbers and what he did all over the field. 19-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, 6-time batting champ, 4 times led the AL in homers and RBI. He's still the MLB all-time leader in on-base percentage at 482. This guy could hit over 400 in a season, won 3 Triple Crowns. I mean, those things that we talk about, the Triple Crown and the 400 batting average, it doesn't happen anymore. Ted Williams did both of those feats back in his time. 521 career homers. And, he missed a couple of seasons in his prime. Imagine if he played those prime seasons, the numbers would look even better. And for him, baseball is a team game. We have Ohtani as the best player in baseball. Trout has been the best player in baseball. They can't even make the playoffs on the same team. But in Ted Williams' time, it was much different. It was the best team out of the American League and the best team out of the National League just played in the World Series. There wasn't like a round-robin format. It was the pennant winners. So Ted Williams only played in 7 postseason games. I believe those are World Series games. So just didn't have that many chances to win. But he was a fantastic player. Ted Williams.
Absolutely. So yeah, great list of all-time great players. Always fun to kind of reminisce about those, guys that we either saw or read about in history books, kind of growing up and just learning about sports. Definitely a fun topic. I think our lists are pretty comprehensive. I don't think there's a ton of people that,
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there
we could
anyone that
list
we
like
left
left
off?
off.
Is
Yeah,
there
like
anyone that you think of right now? Because I think I
no,
did
not
cover a lot
really.
of honorable mentions.
Yeah, into that category. I mean, I think we're maybe a couple healthy seasons of Ken Griffey Jr. Then we're having that Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr. debate. But I think the guys we laid out pretty comprehensive for a bunch of different the different reasons that we listed. So definitely fun to talk about that one. And while we're on the topic of baseball, I'm going to switch around the rundown a little bit.
Here we
Let's talk
go.
about home run derby recap,
Sure.
and then my I guess I'll tie in the Derby with All Star Game and talk about some of the exciting players. But Common, how about you give us a recap of the Home Run Derby that took place last night?
Yeah, home run derby was wild last night. Julio Rodriguez, the Mariners rookie, putting on a show. Third most home runs in a derby for cumulative home runs. 81 total homers. He knocked out Pete Alonso in the semis. He was hitting 30 plus easily in the first two rounds. He actually ran out of gas a little bit in the final, and that's what happens a lot. Like Vlad Guerrero Jr., who had the most in a single derby, that happened to him 2 years ago when he ran out of steam late. But Pete Alonso looking for 3 straight Derby wins. It was him falling to the young Mariner star, and Juan Soto did end up capturing the crown in the final, taking out Rodriguez. Another cool moment was Albert Pujols won a bat off in the first round. Pujols was the 8th seed. He beat Kyle Schwarber, who was the 1 seed, and all of the MLB players kind of gathered around them, kind of saluting the legend. Was cool to see Pujols put on a show. Cool to see Rodriguez put on a show. And pretty cool to see Juan Soto put on a show as well. Soto, by the way, just shut down a $400+ million deal, which was another crazy storyline. But he can probably get more on a per year basis. It was not, even a top 5 best per year basis. Obviously, he probably doesn't want to play for Washington because they can't win games. But I know the home run derby shouldn't matter that much as far as, deals, but it just adds a little bit more popularity and a little bit more of a mystique around Juan Soto. So that was really cool for him. Great for the young Mariners star, though, Rodriguez, to put on a show, kind of put himself on the map there for some baseball fans who maybe didn't know who he was. He is one of the best prospects in baseball, so kind of expect him to do this. Guerrero Jr. did the same thing a couple years ago. I think folks were a little bit more aware of him, but once he put on a show with the Derby like he did, he's going to be known forever. So a great home run derby, really fun. Congratulations to all the participants. I don't think there was a single guy who was a dud. I think everyone put up solid numbers. Every year there's typically one guy who does really bad. It was a lot of really close home run derby contests. It was guys winning by like 1 home run, 2 home runs. There was a couple that were a little further, but we didn't have a guy who had like a goose egg or anything like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Looking at kind of the history of the home run derby, 8 contestants hit 291 total home runs. That is the 3rd most of any home run derby.
Sure.
2019 and 2021 both eclipsed the 300 home run mark. Those are the 2 highest ones. So fun show from everything that I heard, kind of saw on Twitter. Wasn't tuned in myself on that one because, quite frankly, home run derby doesn't really do anything for me.
I love the derby. I was just working, but I love it.
It's an exhibition event. It's whatever to me. I mean, I might look at the All-Star game a little bit tonight, especially considering some of the can't miss players. I mean, obviously Shohei Ohtani is atop the list. He's going to be batting leadoff for the American League. Not going to be starting, though. That was definitely something that Dusty Baker kind of weighed, but I think the Angels reached out and said, hey, Shohei shouldn't start or maybe shouldn't even be pitching in the game just from a work standpoint. So we'll see. It'd be really fun if he both hit and pitched in the game. But the game tonight, Common, who do you have as kind of like a can't miss player, somebody you're really excited to seeing? Because baseball's kind of a regional sport. So of course, you and I get a lot of Cubs, a lot of White Sox. and then whoever they're playing. But we're not really treated to, unless we got MLB TV or something like that. We don't get to see guys like, say, Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Juan Soto. Who's somebody you're looking forward to, not just watching tonight, but outside of the city of Chicago, you look forward to watching play baseball?
Yeah, sure. So I do have MLB TV, but I don't
Nice.
watch it all the time. I watch it from time to time. I'm a busy guy, but I do have it. I've got the comprehensive sports package. You know me, Tom. I can't not have my sports. I've got it all. MLB, NBA, tennis channel. I've got it all. But I think that, obviously Otani is a can't miss guy. I would like to see him, even if it's pitching to one batter, getting to, hit and pitch in the All-Star game. Aaron Judge, he's like a big, tall dude. He's kind of like Barry Bonds. Like, he just looks intimidating at the plate. Not as good as Barry Bonds, but a similar level of intimidation when you face him at the plate. I think he's not playing in this game, but I think Fernando Tatis Jr., who's injured, is great to watch. He's got a lot of swag. But as far as this specific All-Star game, I think it's going to be really cool to see Clayton Kershaw. I saw this stat. I was surprised that Kershaw had yet to start an All-Star game before. He's going to start the All-Star game at Dodger Stadium in front of the Dodger fans. That'll be neat to see. I think pretty cool seeing Pujols and Cabrera in one last All-Star game. I really think that decision by the commissioner was great to get those in as legacy guys. So should be a lot of fun. I do like this specific. If it ends in a tie, they're going to do a home run derby, and they each have three teams, three players selected from each side. I know the NL's got like Alonso, Schwarber, and Ronald Acuna Jr., all guys who are in the home run derby, who are fresh trying to do this. So if it does end in a tie, I feel like the National League would have a pretty significant advantage in that home run derby bat-off. So I'm hoping for a tie, so we see that. I know you're a little neutral on that, but I think it's a cool little thing for fans. And it's like if it's like a 3-2 game, you have that extra want to stay tuned and maybe see extra innings. So I think that's a fun little wrinkle to the MLB All-Star game. But I think it's cool anytime all the stars gather together, and it is an exhibition game. But I think everyone is trying. It's not like the NFL where you're not going to get tackled, play flag football. It's not like the NBA where there's zero defense. I do feel that everyone is ultimately going to be trying to get guys out and trying to hit the ball. So, I like football and basketball a little bit better as overall sports to watch regular season games. But the All-Star game might be a little bit more competitive in the MLB and closer to what an actual game looks like. And I think that'll be exciting to see.
Absolutely. As far as like my player to watch that I really, really enjoy, I like Juan Soto a lot, the home run champ from last night. He's being compared to somebody we've already talked about in the show, Ted Williams.
All right.
And
cool
just in terms of let's
cool that chat off.
Well, in terms of to be fair, Ted Williams didn't really play against anybody other than white people. Like, he was only playing against half the talent pool, give or take.
No, that's fair.
In terms of pure hit skill and everything, people are saying Juan Soto is a Ted Williams level talent. Already has a World Series under his belt. Phenomenal player. He's in the middle of turning down, like you said, that rumored to be $440 million extension, probably for all the reasons you listed out. Like, who wants to stick in a Washington Nationals organization that is A, currently not even close to contending, and B, possibly up for sale over the next couple of years? And with new ownership, that's going to have a whole new thing. But sticking just to the baseball, for me, I really like how Juan Soto reacts after a pitcher misses the strike zone, where he does that little slide shuffle. He gets into the game, and that's what makes him really, really fun for me. I mean, another player, not necessarily a star per se, but that's why I really like watching Javi Baez, because he plays the game with a flair, with a joy, something that really makes the game interesting.
Tatis too does the same thing.
Tatis does the same thing. So, I really enjoy watching Juan Soto. I can cross my fingers and go to bed every night dreaming that he'll be playing on the South Side for my Chicago White Sox, my favorite baseball team. Not likely to happen given the amount of money that he's going to demand on his next contract. But I think Juan Soto's he's only 23 years old. He's already accomplished so much in his career. So looking forward to seeing him playing tonight as well. And then also going to be looking forward to tuning in a little bit to the game. Joe Davis, now with Joe Buck moving over to ESPN and doing just Monday Night Football with Troy Aikman, Joe Davis now takes over full time as the lead Fox Sports baseball play-by-play guy. Certainly, young guy certainly has a lot of regard for that. He's well regarded within the industry. So we're going to have a new voice of not only All-Star baseball, but coming up in this October, maybe early November as well, World Series baseball as well. So that's another person I'm looking forward to, just because that's the voice of national baseball. That's something that everybody's going to get a little bit of a flavor of. So going to be interesting to see how he's kind of received as well.
Absolutely. One other quick note, just a random thought that came to mind when you said Juan Soto already a World Series under his belt. You mentioned Javier Baez. Isn't it crazy how the Cubs won the World Series a few years back? We had the Nationals winning the World Series, and now these teams are terrible. Like, it is wild how things can change in baseball, for sure.
Yeah, and it's incredible how you can have, there's a reason why 2 of our top 5 guys on the ringless list, are from baseballs, because it's a team game that's really, really difficult for individual outstanding players to impact.
Sure.
You only get 4, maybe 5 at-bats in a game. If you're playing in the field, you only have X number of, ground balls or fly balls hit to you. You have a limited impact on what you can do. So I think that's part of some of the, I guess, tragedy behind some of the great players who never necessarily win it all, like Mike Trout, like perhaps maybe, unfortunately, Shohei Ohtani. So that wraps up the MLB All-Star Game. That will be going tonight as we're recording on a Tuesday. Couple of sports news or notes to touch up on. NBA, we've got DeAndre Ayton returning to the Phoenix Suns after the Pacers offered him an offer sheet as a restricted free agent. He signed with them. Suns quickly matched 4 years, $133 million. Kama, what are your thoughts on the Suns bringing back the center on their team, although not necessarily the centerpiece to a championship roster?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting because first off, I will say this: the Suns actually, from what I heard on online, did not actually think Ayton was going to get this big of an offer. So the Suns started at this the right way. They didn't give him the money right away. They wanted to see if someone would get him the money. A lot of teams didn't want to give him that money. The Pacers did. The Suns matched. So I'm a little bit split on this deal because, there's some reports about the Suns trying to go after Kevin Durant, and apparently the Nets aren't really interested in DeAndre Ayton. They don't really value him as highly, if you read the reports. But that doesn't mean that he won't get traded, though. There's possibilities for 3-team trades, stuff like that. So that could happen there. So holding on to Ayton makes the Durant deal just a little bit harder. That's where I'm a little bit skeptical. But if they don't think they're going to get Durant, then it does make a little bit more sense to keep Ayton. I mean, 4 years, 133. It's better than 5 years, 251 that Bradley Beal got. So I would say this is fairly fair for Ayton. I wouldn't give him any more than that, but I think it's not necessarily a terrible deal. I mean, you look at what he's done: 16 points, 10.5 rebounds in just over 30 minutes for his career so far. Most of his career as the third scorer, as kind of like a big man who plays in the paint, a dying breed in the NBA. So he's actually contributed pretty well, given his position and his opportunities to get the ball. So I do think he's a good contributor. So I'm a little split. Eileen, I get it. I don't think I'm over the top excited if I'm the Suns, but I'm not necessarily upset. I would be more supportive of the move if I knew for sure they weren't pursuing Durant. The fact that they might be pursuing Durant, this makes a little bit tougher for me because I don't know. We'll see. Ayton may not be involved in that trade. I mean, they can pull off a trade and get Durant with Ayton staying and Paul and Booker. Then then it's great. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. So I'm a little torn, but I get it. Them signing him back to that deal. I get it.
Yeah, it was basically once Indiana offered that, put forth that offer for DeAndre Ayton and he signed it. One of two things could happen: either Phoenix could let DeAndre Ayton walk and receive nothing in return, or they could work out a sign and a trade directly with Indiana. And basically, once that happened, the Suns had no choice but to sign DeAndre Ayton. Putting on my contract Castleman hat right over here. With the offer sheet, if he were to have signed the offer with Indiana, he would have been ineligible for a trade for an entire year. And in re-signing, in Phoenix matching that offer, it's that January 15th. And he also has a full no trade clause for a calendar year as well. Okay. So basically, Phoenix probably looked at Indiana's roster. Indiana's a rebuilding team. They actually waived a couple of guys in order to clear up enough cap space to just sign DeAndre Ayton outright, because they viewed him as, a young piece that they could pair with Tyrese Halliburton to kind of start building a young core in Indiana. So probably anything that they could have offered to Phoenix would not have been as enticing in terms of trying to get Kevin Durant. And of course, clearing any sort of cap space with letting DeAndre Ayton walk wouldn't work because Durant's under contract for a number of years. So really, you're just letting a really, really prized asset go for nothing. I think as far as the numbers of the deal, it works out pretty well on both sides. DeAndre Ayton gets paid pretty handsomely for a position that is more and more fungible in the NBA. And Phoenix gets to keep probably one of the best centers in the game. I mean, that's not really saying much because center isn't really a valued position, but it's certainly top 10, maybe even close to top 5 for DeAndre Ayton. And they don't have to pay him a full 5 years. And I think they were able to save roughly $43 million on the contract as opposed to if they just signed him to a max offer. So I think this is a case of a win-win. Definitely think there'd be kind of a different story around DeAndre Ayton and the Suns if, say, he'd been used a little bit better. If they'd gone to him more in the post to beat up on the Dallas Mavericks in that Western Conference series, because I think that would have been the difference. Then that would have been a Phoenix Golden State Western Conference Finals, which would have been, really fun to see as opposed to kind of the blowout that we got with a 4-1 series win for Golden State. Heck, we could have seen a completely different NBA Finals at that point, quite frankly.
You never know.
So that's the sort of thing where I think the Suns made the right move in bringing him back. I think this definitely cools off the Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns talks until at the very least mid-season. I would imagine probably next off season is better though, just because making a big trade like that mid-season is going to be tough.
So are you saying Durant's not going to get traded in this offseason?
Well, not to Phoenix.
Not to
Phoenix is pretty much off the table until NBA trade deadline, just because DeAndre Ayton would have to be a big part of that deal because I don't see them putting up Devin Booker or Chris Paul as kind of a centerpiece. They kind of want to hang on to those guys. So we'll see. I mean, it could be a really wild, wacky trade deadline like we had this past season. But I think that's going to be a little bit tougher to swing for somebody of Durant's caliber just because he's at the top of his game.
I mean, if you could put up one of Booker or Paul to get Durant, I think surely that'd be worth it.
Probably.
I know they just signed Booker to a long deal. I know Chris Paul doesn't have that much.
I'm not sure what the contract stipulates. I would imagine if they signed Booker to that extension, he is also ineligible until January 15th. But that's still an entire month. So it's still an entire month between that deadline and the NBA trade deadline. But yeah, I think, like you said, probably a win-win for Suns and for Ayton. The team that loses out, Indiana, they don't get that top player that they wanted, and possibly Brooklyn not having an easier trade partner for Kevin Durant.
Sure, absolutely.
To the British Open, which, believe it or not, I actually watched a little bit of the last day.
Golf clap.
Had a really, really nice big breakfast that I made. Jenna was off doing wedding shower stuff for a future sister-in-law.
Congratulations.
So that means that I got to have, just an entire Sunday morning of sitting in front of the TV, putting on golf, eating breakfast, because, what else am I going to do by myself on that morning? So turned out to be a really, really intriguing, fun kind of last couple of rounds. Common, what's the recap from you?
Yeah, it was, it's crazy because our picks did pretty good. Our
Yep.
picks did pretty good. You had Tommy Fleetwood winning. He got fourth. I had Rory McIlroy winning. He got third. And Rory probably should have won going into Sunday.
Mm.
It was him and Victor Hovland were tied for first. Hovland faded. And actually, if your name was Cameron, you did pretty good. Cameron Young, Cameron Smith getting the top two. Cameron Young shoots a 64 on Sunday to win by 2 over Rory and then 1 over Cameron Young. Rory shot a 70 in the final round, which was a little bit surprising because, you know, Cameron Young, Cameron Smith, not as good of golfers as Rory McIlroy. So you would have thought that he would have been the one that comes up clutch, but it's the two Camerons that were really clutch in the golf. So pretty cool that we had 3 guys in the golf finals that were all within, you know, a couple strokes. I think it was definitely cool for Cameron Smith, though, to do what he did for sure at the British Open. So really neat tournament. I think it was pretty cool. Tiger Woods obviously saying it might be his last one. That was another storyline. But a little bit disappointing for Rory McIlroy not to win the Open Championship, the British Open. Huge win for Cameron Smith. I believe his first major, Tom, after being close a few times. I got to think Rory's got to be disappointed he didn't win that one.
Absolutely. I mean, Rory absolutely golfed well enough to win the entire tournament. It was just in watching it, Cam Smith was amazing with his putts and being able to overtake Rory there. I mean, Rory shooting 2 under. I mean, he had a really solid day, but just too many 2 putts, which when you have a couple of them like earlier on, doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal where he's parring a lot of the holes. But then when you have Cam Smith just birdie. I think he also got he got an eagle on the last one, and maybe that was Cam Young, who got an eagle on the 18th to overtake Rory for second place. It was just phenomenal performance. It's one of those, if you were to ask the question, did Rory lose or did Cam Smith win it? I think absolutely 100%. Cam Smith won it. Rory played really good. He just wasn't as transcendent as Smith was going into that last day. So
64. That's 8 under, I think.
Incredible.
That is a crazy last round to win your first.
Isn't the record
major
on the British Open on the last round, isn't like 66 the best? So I think this sets like the best score on the last day for that course.
I'm not 100%
like
sure.
That,
I watched a little bit.
As soon as it was over,
it.
I turned it off.
Yeah. That's an impressive, though. Impressive performance for sure. Really good dramatic tournament. You know, golf isn't my favorite sport, but I do try and watch the majors. And when it's close late in the major, it provides for incredible drama.
Absolutely. Well, also some incredible drama in our locks of the week. As a show, we went 6-3. Common and I both went 3-0, so we'll let everyone else do a little bit of mathematics on that one. Common, what's the recap?
Tough week for Drew, who is one of our other co-hosts sending his picks in. He's been out for the summer. We'll see what happens for next season. But yeah, 3-0 week for me. I'll enjoy it when I can get it. I had the Orioles plus 105 at the Cubs last week on July 12th. Orioles winning 4-2. I had the White Sox minus 1.5 at the Indians at plus 100. Also July 12th, Sox winning 7-0. And then a baseball triple header for me. Astros minus 125 on the money line. That's about where we cut it off. If it's minus 130 or higher, we don't allow the picks. That one just within the bounds. Astros winning 7-5 at the Angels. 3-0 week. You also had the Orioles over the Cubs, Tom. That one hit for you. Giants minus 1.5 over the D-backs. 13-0. You didn't have to sweat on that one. Tommy Fleetwood, top 20 finish at the British Open at plus 100. You were correct. He got 4th. Drew was 0-3, got the Cubs to beat the Orioles. So he went against us in that game. Orioles winning 4-2. Ferencvaros and Tabo Champions League qualifying under 2.5 goals, 5-1, doubled up 3 goals there. And then B36 versus Borek Banja, Europa Conference League under 2.5 goals, 3-1, B36. So 4 total goals there. Drew Brackett is notorious for picking unders in games. notorious for doing well with it. Lately, it's been going terribly. So he's going to mix it up. He's going to go with overs instead. MLB All-Star Game tonight, over 7.5 runs from Drew. Wednesday, UEFA Women's Euro Soccer. That is the Euros. We got Spain, England, over 2.5 goals for Drew. And then Europa Conference League Soccer, Gotha versus DAC, 1904, over 2.5 goals in that game. So Drew going with 2 soccer overs and an MLB over. Tom, what you got this week? This is great because Drew likes having weird picks. You know me, I like having soccer from time to time. This week is definitely a challenge for you because we don't have the MLB available lines other than the All-Star Game. So I can't wait to see what you came up with.
Well, I decided I will go ahead and ride alongside Drew with an over on the MLB All-Star Game. Reasoning for this, we just saw the 3rd highest total home runs hit in the Derby last night. And this has kind of been a story. I've mentioned it, on and off again throughout the show over the past year, maybe a year and a half. Baseball likes to play around with what baseball they're actually using. So we have sometimes a bit of a softer, deader baseball. Kind of see that early on in the season this year. And then when people are kind of worrying about, oh my gosh, there's not enough runs, all of a sudden, I believe it was like mid-May, there was a sharp spike in the amount of home runs, fly ball distance, all that good stuff. And then, of course, run totals go up. So if I'm baseball and I know it's that age-old Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux commercial, chicks dig the long ball.
Oh, I love that commercial.
I think we're going to see baseball using the livelier baseball in their All-Star Game because they're going to want social media interaction. And yeah, while strikeouts are good for that, so are home runs, so are dingers. So I think we're actually going to see over 7.5 runs in that exhibition game tonight. I don't often like picking exhibitions, but let me tell you, Common, these wells be dry out here for bets. So dry, I'm going to Major League Soccer.
I've
literally never gone here ever before.
Let's go.
Give me in Major League Soccer, New York FC and Inter Miami. They're playing on July 23rd, under 3 goals.
Okay.
New York FC has been on a roll, winning a couple of 1-0 matches, and then Inter Miami is doing a friendly with, I believe, Barcelona today.
Yeah, Barca,
so
baby.
That's going to
Lewandowski, welcome.
I imagine they're going to be a little bit slower paced when they play again later in the week. I don't know if this is actually going to be true or not. Also, I get a whole half goal. I know Drew usually goes for 2.5 goal unders. If this game is, 2-1, I at least get a wash on that one. It's been a while since we've had a tie in the show, so I'll take that one. And then here's one I actually feel pretty good about. Plus money Castleman on this one. In the LPGA Evian Championship, give me Minjee Lee at plus 110 to outshoot In-Ji Chun and Jennifer Kupcho.
Okay.
So that's going to be this upcoming weekend of women's golf tournament. Minjee Lee to outshoot those other 2 golfers.
All right, the golf picks don't do great on betting locks, but we'll see.
I mean, Tommy Fleetwood hit this one. I feel pretty decent
and maybe
about,
you're back on a roll. You're right. I didn't think about that. Tommy Fleetwood. So, all right, well, I'm going to go opposite you guys. Kind of interesting that both you and Drew picked the over in the All-Star Game, which could be a little concerning for me. But I like the under 7.5 runs. All-Star Game results over the last 5 years, Tom. 5-2, 4-3, 8-6, 2-1, 4-2, aka 4 of the last 5 years. It's gone under 7.5 runs. So many good pitchers in baseball. Shane McClanahan going to start for the AL, Kershaw for the National League in his home ballpark. He knows how to pitch there. Should be off to a good start. Funny, Dusty Baker also said McClanahan, he didn't know he never seen him pitch before, which is so funny that he selected him as the All-Star Game pitcher. But nonetheless, like a lot of great pitchers. We've got the analytics. Some of these ace pitchers only got to pitch 1 inning. They're going to give it their all. Look for the continuing trend of not a lot of runs in the All-Star Game, under 7.5. I've got UEFA Women's Euros on Wednesday. On DraftKings, England minus 105 over Spain. So that's the win in regulation. This is the knockout stages in that competition. So say it ends 1-1 in regulation, I would lose the bet. So like England is the favorite to win, but they could win over 90 minutes, over 120, over penalty kicks. So for my bet to cash, they must win over the first 90 minutes, and win they will. England minus 105. They're 3-0 in group play, outscored their opponents 14-0. This is in England, on home soil. They're rolling. They know how to play there. Spain, meanwhile, 2-1 in group play, scored 5 goals and allowed 3 goals. So a lot of close matches, not a lot of dominance for Spain. England's been dominating. This one should be close, but I feel good about England getting the win in regulation. And finally tonight, going to go a little WNBA tonight. WNBA, we got the Las Vegas Aces minus 12 over the Atlanta Dream. Aces are 18-7. Dream are 11-14. Dreaming for more wins because they're not getting many. Aces have won 3 straight, including a recent 108-74 win against New York. The Dream have lost 3 of the last 4. 3 of the 3 losses coming by 12 points or more. So Las Vegas should roll at home, taking out the Aces by 13 or more. Let's go. Got a lot of lady action tonight in Locks of the Week, which is fine. That's good.
Absolutely.
It'll be good.
And also got some exhibition baseball, which
let's go.
I have very little confidence in, despite my conspiracy theories. Trivia,
Sure.
I'll be honest, Twitter's been a bit dry for trivia for me, so I have not seen anything that caught my eye. The only one I can think of, I just was kind of like scrolling through some news and notes. Serge Ibaka is going back to the Milwaukee Bucks, resigning there. He is second in active leaders for blocked shots. Can you give me who's first in active
Dwight Howard.
leaders? It is Dwight Howard. On to your trivia.
That was quick. My trivia, it is the MLB All-Star Game.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of told you off here, I was originally going to do a trivia question. I didn't tell you the trivia question I'm doing, but I told you the one I was considering, and then I decided not to do it. Most All-Star Game appearances, but there's, at one point, there was 2 different All-Star games going on, but I mean, some of the all-time All-Star guys, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, names like that, played forever, but didn't go that route. Instead, I'm going to go with most career home runs in MLB All-Star Game history. I love having theme.
Okay.
What player has the most? He's got 6. I'll give you the number. 6 is the most ever for a career in the All-Star Game. I'll start with saying we didn't watch this guy play. That's your first clue. We're going old school here.
Old school All-Star Game. Is it Mickey Mantle?
No, not that old school.
Not that old school. Okay, so somewhere past World War II. Would it be Reggie Jackson, Mr. October?
Not Mr. October.
Ooh.
You know what?
Hmm.
This guy did play after Mickey Mantle, but not significantly after. Probably right after Mickey Mantle. Let me see. They might have played in the same era very briefly. I don't think so. I think he was right after Mickey Mantle.
So in that case, I would be thinking maybe like either like Stargell, McCovey.
All right, so not those guys. So Mickey Mantle's. Oh, you know what? These guys played in the same era a lot longer than I thought. To be honest with you, same era as Mickey Mantle.
Would it be DiMaggio?
Not a teammate of Mantle.
Not
wow, I for some reason I thought this guy was after Mickey Mantle. Mantle actually retired after this guy did, but they pretty much played their careers in the same era. This guy played for longer than Mickey Mantle did. If that's a clue, played for a long time, and looks like took a break for a year as well. It's not Ted Williams. Don't go Ted.
I was just about to say, have we talked about this guy on our show? Okay. What other greats?
Hall of Famer, obviously.
Jimmy Fox was during Babe Ruth's time. Mantle came after Jimmy Fox.
Yeah.
Stan Musial, I think, is also before Mantle. Or some of the other great hitters of that time. Not a teammate, so not Yogi Berra.
All right, I don't know if I should. Well, I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know what I should say right here.
Is it Yogi Berra?
No, it's not Yogi Berra.
Johnny Bench came after Mantle.
So you said this guy. He actually
Oh, I
played.
did?
He started before Mantle,
Is it
but
Musial then?
Stan Musial, yeah,
Wow.
6 home runs in the All-Star game,
Wow, I thought
record
he was
holder.
okay. So yeah, that makes sense because I was like, I thought he played before, but then yeah, I guess that overlap.
He played from
Stan the
41 to
man.
44, 46 to 63. Mano played
Mm,
51 to
I
68.
didn't
So
realize he played that late. I knew he played in the 40s, and I had Mantle as like 50s and maybe 60s.
yeah, and Stan Musial was another
Mm,
guy that was up there for most All-Star appearances. But when I was listing off the guys, I didn't want to list them off because that would, give you a clue for this
right.
question. But Stan the man, absolutely a great player.
Wow.
25 home runs shy of 500. It's a shame he couldn't run it back one
Mm,
more year, but he was a fantastic player for the Cardinals back in the day. Fantastic
absolutely.
player. Stan the man, 24-time All-Star, if Wikipedia is correct. 24-time All-Star. That is wild.
That's incredible.
So,
Statements of the week. To be perfectly honest, like I don't know how strongly. Well, I do feel a bit strongly about my statement of the week, so I'll just
okay,
start off with that one. At SEC Media Days,
here we
Alabama
go.
star outside linebacker Will Anderson has a goal this season to win the Heisman Trophy and to change the perspective of the award.
Good
He's
luck.
quoted as saying, "I feel like they love offense over there. They love touchdowns. They love yards." Well, Willie Anderson last season led the country in sacks with 17 and a half and tackles for loss 34 and a half. Just a sophomore as he did that, won the Bronco Nagurski Award, which is given to the top defensive player in football. And quite frankly, like I get why you look at the list of Heisman winners and it is almost exclusively running backs and quarterbacks. Because if you're a wide receiver, typically you have a really good quarterback getting you the ball. And of course, on defense, I know Woodson won the Heisman, but he was also playing receiver and returning kicks, so he was contributing other ways that weren't
Sure.
strictly defense. So we've never had a defensive player winning the Heisman Trophy, and quite frankly, it's like it's become a quarterback centric award. I think only 3 non-quarterbacks have won it in this century, and there's
That
already
that can't be right. Is that really right?
I'll have to. I closed the tab that had the list on it.
Maybe because I know we had Smith win it as receiver recently, and we had some
List
running
of
backs.
Heisman.
Maybe like non-quarterback receiver running back. That's crazy. It is definitely very quarterback centered though.
Absolutely, I'm pulling up a list of Heisman winners right now and going to that.
Well, because we
But
had
the
a bunch
larger
of running
overarching
backs
point,
won. A lot. I feel like there's been a lot of running backs that have won. Maybe it's non-quarterback, non-running back. What you're
we have
looking at.
Devontae Smith, Derrick Henry,
Oh, I guess this
Mark
century is the last 20
Ingram,
years, isn't it?
Reggie Bush was vacated. But yeah, everybody else has been, and then Eric Couch is a quarterback slash wide receiver. Um, but yeah, so you got one guy who's kind of right on the edge with Eric Crouch, who played
He
two
was. Well, he
positions
was
in
a
'01.
Crouch was a running quarterback. He played receiver in the NFL, but in college he was a running quarterback.
Right.
He was actually more of a running back in reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we include Reggie Bush, who got vacated for silly, silly reasons, it goes Reggie Bush, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and Devontae Smith are the only non-quarterbacks to win the
Okay.
Heisman in this century. So it's become a quarterback-centric award, which we already have. A best quarterback in the nation award. It shouldn't be a de facto best quarterback is then also the best overall player. I get it's easier with touchdowns, passing yards. Like there's so many more stats that voters and fans can see and easily comprehend. But as far as overall impact on the game, yeah, an edge rusher might not make an impact because they don't literally have the ball in their hands every single play the way a quarterback does. But when you have a season like Anderson had last year, where he is absolutely disrupting the run game, the pass game, I mean, I think defensive players, I know they play a little bit more of a unit. It's a little bit more team oriented than individual oriented. But I think voters absolutely need to be more open-minded in including top defensive players when it merits for the Heisman, because I'm like personally getting tired of it just being the top quarterback award for the best college football player in the country. Because even if quarterback is most impactful, like we already have an award for best quarterback. I think the Heisman Trophy should have a little bit different of a distinction to it than that award. So I feel strongly, just because it is so much on the quarterback, it's the sign of the times. It used to be heavy on running back, so I get that things change, but a little bit more variety for individual players to have outstanding seasons that aren't touching a ball every single play of the game.
Well, I'll play devil's advocate here and say that there is a best defensive player of the year award, and the quarterback is touching the ball the most. That is why he is, probably the most valuable position in all of sports. I know there's, different positions, but the quarterback is what matters most. You touch the ball every time. You get a lot of pass yards. It's all about passing these days. Even you look at, the Alabama star that you mentioned. He had 17 sacks, you said? Like, if you think about it, he was getting about one a game. Like, he did get tackles for loss. He did get, some other tackles, but essentially he was getting one a game of his stat. Whereas, the quarterback may drop back and make 40 passes. Like, the Heisman Trophy is sort of like who's the most valuable player. And I do feel like in years that guys are amazing, like when Devontae Smith was great for Alabama, he did win it. When Derrick Henry was great for Alabama, he did win it. So you got to go out there and have a historic season. If he wants to win the Heisman, goes out there and gets 25 sacks, then get back to me. But it's just the way the game is. The quarterback is what matters more. And like you said, the running back used to get a lot of them. Well, because back then you won by running the ball. Now you win by passing the ball. So I get what you're saying. But I do think the Heisman Trophy should be whoever is the best player. And it's like in baseball, we talk about it's harder to impact the game. When you're hitting 4 times a game, 5 times a game, it is harder to impact the game as a defensive player. That's not to say that defensive players don't matter, and defensive units matter a ton, just as much as offense. But a single individual player, the quarterback, impacts the game more than anybody. So, I mean, that's the thing. If it's who's the most dominant at their position versus who the most valuable is a different story. I look at the Heisman Trophy as like the college football MVP. And if we're talking value, the quarterback is the most valuable position. I do get what you're saying, Tom.
Yeah.
Personally, I've got no gripe as far as quarterbacks winning Heisman trophies.
Basically, like what it comes down to me is it shouldn't take a truly amazing historic season for anybody who's not a quarterback to win the award. Well, quarterbacks, I'd argue that it should. That's fair.
Depends on where you stand on that side. So interesting. So, I like having a lot of bold statements for statements of the week. Usually I like to get a little crazy. I would like to say that this statement is not crazy. This is pretty common sense, but it just drives me nuts. And I know it shouldn't, because it's just a video game, but the Madden NFL ratings came out and I am shook right here. So just some horrible decisions at the wide receiver position. We had Ja'Marr Chase, Tom, last year. Ja'Marr finished 4th in the league. Number 4 in the league in receiving yards. Number 3 in touchdowns. He's very fast. He's strong. He's athletic. And he was ranked the 18th best receiver in Madden. Guys like Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Michael Thomas. Just ridiculous that Ja'Marr would be ranked 18th best receiver when he was statistically a top 5 receiver without question in the game. And also Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel put up the 2nd most total yards receiving and rushing. He was top 5 in receiving yards. He was ranked 13th. So no love shown to Deebo. No love at all shown to Ja'Marr Chase. I don't know how Tyler Lockett gets ahead of Ja'Marr Chase on this list. How does DJ Moore get ahead of him? It's just mind-blowing. Also, Cooper Kupp, I would say a little bit disrespected. Devontae Adams got a 99. Cooper Kupp, led the league in catches, yards, and touchdowns. I get it. Maybe he's not the fastest athletically. Adams is maybe a little bit more athletic. I can somewhat see it. I can live with Adams number one, Kupp number two. But I don't really like Ja'Marr Chase being 18th best. And he put it out on social media. He's motivated. He's got some haters to prove wrong. Mind-boggling, like where you put him at number 18. Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, these are guys that got in the top 10. I don't know how they got ahead of Ja'Marr Chase. This list of receivers was just bonkers, Tom. Madden ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Get it together, Madden. Show some respect to Ja'Marr Chase, Deebo Samuel, and more guys like that.
Yeah, it's kind of outrageous that they have it like that, but
they can do what they
MVP
want.
Season that Cooper Kupp had, and not have him be a 99.
I wonder if they decide just to they pick one or two things to decide every year just to get attention for the game. Honestly,
possibly, because doesn't Madden now update in season as statistics happen, as games happen? They say, oh, some players better or worse. So they could easily just be week 2, Ja'Marr Chase is all of a sudden top 10 and everything. Yeah, that's a cynical viewpoint, but one, because it's cynical, I subscribe to wholeheartedly.
Absolutely.
That Madden does this just to get.
Absolutely.
I don't feel bad for that. I got taken. It's fine.
They got us good.
Fell for it.
Here's the thing. They put up a guy like that. We create a lot of chatter, and then Madden gets a lot of views on ESPN. Madden gets views on Salute Your Sports. Madden gets shouted out everywhere. I wouldn't put it past them.
What's the last Madden that you bought?
Oh gosh, it's been forever.
Mine is the Richard Sherman 2015.
Oh, you're
Madden.
ahead of me. I think 2013 maybe was the last one I had. It's been a while since I bought the game. I used to play it religiously when it was Madden 05. I played that game all the time.
Was that McNabb?
I think Ray Lewis.
Okay, so then I have 06 with McNabb then.
Yeah, when they put the QB Vision up, I started doing worse. I was pre-QB Vision All-Star, post-QB Vision scrub. I'll put it that way. I did not adjust to the QB Vision very well.
My biggest gripe with Madden, and actually this goes across the board
game,
with all the sport games. Oh yeah? Although whenever I look at it, it's oh, should I get a newer version or whatever? All the reviews are saying how terrible it is. It always crashes and everything. And my biggest complaint with sports games is that because they're kind of going more and more toward online, PvP. Yeah. It's more about the skill of hitting and pitching and everything. And whereas for me, it's I just want to sit and basically just button mash and just kind of enjoy it. I don't want to be stressed out about watching, sure.
I agree.
So that's kind of my complaint with sports video games, is that they don't have a more relaxed, casual version or casual way of playing these games. They've gone so far overboard toward,
Tom, come play with me on PlayStation 2. That's the last system I own. I'm a PS2 guy. Recently played FIFA with my girlfriend. I love FIFA, Madden, NBA. Those are the MLB, the 4 video games I grew up playing. Love them. NCAA football as well. I played with Reggie Bush back in the day. That's going to be
making a comeback. Yeah,
that'll be making a comeback. So I don't get the modern day games and systems. I'm an old school guy. I don't play much, but every once in a while I put out the old PS2, and most recently played FIFA about a month ago. Really enjoyed it. So
nice.
I'm not going to be playing online against people. I agree with you. I'd rather play against, a friend or, the computer, whatever. I used to be pretty good at video games in middle school. I definitely would get torched in those online games.
I don't.
Leave that to Drew Brackett. He plays online. He's a competitor. He's the guy that would show us how to do it. But
my self-confidence is too fragile to have,
Sure.
Some 12-year-old mouthing off.
Well, and I don't want to live with that. Those guys have more experience. I like video games, but I'm an adult and I have other things to do. So every once in a while, it's fun to pull it out. But Yeah, I wouldn't enjoy playing online with someone who plays like, gosh, 3-4 hours a day, 7 days a week. I play 3-4 hours a year, you know.
Hmm.
So no, thank you. I agree. That's a fair sentiment. But I will say I was always a sports video game guy. I wasn't much of a shooter guy. I was terrible at Call of Duty, at Halo,
Mm,
all those games. Did enjoy Mario Kart. You can get me Mario Kart, I'll play.
sure.
But I'm more of a sports video gamer. I was not really a shooter or any of the other video games personally.
Absolutely. Well, I think that wraps it up for our show today.
Yeah,
Not bad for a quote unquote slow time of year as far as having topics to
sure,
cover. I think we're TBD on our next program exactly
sure.
because we're not going to have a whole lot of stuff to recap next week, but certainly with college football and NFL right around the corner, I believe this week, actually, NFL training camps are opening up,
Yep.
and college is already having its media days and getting ready for their training camps as well. So it'll be week zero for college football. It'll be preseason Hall of Fame game in no time, giving us plenty of additional topics to talk about. And of course, Major League Baseball in the nominal second half, even though we're past the 81 game mark. That's going to be coming down the wire as well. Really interesting with multiple wildcard spots available. So we will be recapping it all for you over the next coming weeks and months as we head into football season.
Yeah, Tom, we're definitely only a few weeks away from
Hmm.
consistently, for sure, having a show every week. So we'll let you guys know when we're on next, but definitely a great show today. Thank you to everyone who watched and listened. Thank you to Tom for co hosting with me. Always a great time. We'll see you guys when we see you. Have a great day, everyone.